our lifeless son lay. My wife went to the opposite side of the bed, and I took my position closest to the door. After a short period of grieving together, my wife's father, mother, brother, and his wife arrived. From the moment the doors opened, the natural distance in relationships was evident. I watched as if in slow motion their every step. They walked across the room, passing by without acknowledgement, reaching their destination, my wife. They had to make that walk. I fully understand, but right then, all the reasoning in the world could not relieve the pangs of loneliness. I knew they were not coming for me. No one was coming for me. Left standing there, grief-stricken and alone, it was ultimate loneliness, agonizingly so. The inner turmoil so intensified and utter despair overtook me. I stood on an island, defeated, devastated. Though it seemed I couldn't cry anymore, a new stream burst forth from the depths of my already shattered soul. How can I possibly describe those emotions which for me are forever frozen in time? Firstly, I don't mention this because of any grudge or hostility. It's just stating the facts. It's what happened. If we had lived in Australia, I am sure the opposite would have occurred. Secondly, it dawned on me, for that brief period of time, there was no one I could turn to, no one in which to share my grief. No supportive shoulder could be found. No parents. They were 10,000 miles away. No siblings. They were 10,000 miles away. No closest friends. They too were 10,000 miles away. If you can glimpse the intensity of that loneliness and reflect upon your own life, this painting reveals that it is all too common. Though circumstances vary, we are not that different in our experiences. In the words of the song Anchor by Beautiful Eulogy, at some point, every human looks right in the eyes of agony and through the tragedy asks himself, how can this happen to me? You might be the type with enough insight to hold on for your dear life, but slip because your grip is not as tight as you might like. You ain't immune to it. Nah. It's in the song. Many trapped under such emotional turmoil, tragedy, sorrow, pain, and suffering have asked, why even continue with the effort to paint? Simply cast this canvas into the garbage and be finished. Numerous souls have traveled such a path when life has reached a level that appeared utterly unbearable. No. Do not be so foolish. Do not give up. Do not leave the studio. Paint because the story is not yet fully told. Add color and definition from that evening. Bring forth the contrast in order to make certain that of this light and of this hope we have spoken about, one can be absolutely sure. Keep your eye on the painting. These coming strokes are so precise they will make sense of an otherwise tragic scene. Watch carefully the master painter. I assure you it is a masterpiece. You will be astounded. Regrettably, now and again, we leave home with a slammed door and an unforgiving word for the ones we love. Oftentimes, we are too hurried to say our goodbyes properly. Before I left for work that evening, I received 3 flying leap hugs from Matthias. Who would have known our last physical interaction while he was conscious would be so precious? My occupation requires me to be away overnight. That evening, I filled a position I had never worked before. When I accepted the assignment, the bonus was that at the end of my shift, I could return home. At work, law dictates no cell phones be in our possession or even turned on while performing safety-related tasks. After 7 hours on duty, we began our meal period. Within 5 minutes of turning on my phone, I received the call regarding the accident. We often wonder, would Tiggy have had a better chance of survival if life flight had not been grounded that evening due to high winds? However, we are grateful that the first responders were able to reach our home. If the accident happened the year before, 2 feet of snow would have prevented any such assistance reaching us. At the county hospital, we were able to comfort the other children as best we could. Friends were making sleeping arrangements for them. The first plan was to split them among 2 homes. Fortunately, they were able to stay under one roof. Matthias was transported to the city hospital. As my wife and I drove along and pulled over to allow Tiggy's ambulance to pass, we were left wondering if Tiggy would be alive by the time we got there. We kept track of the vehicle several miles before it was swallowed up by the hills. We arrived and Matthias was alive. During the short walk between the emergency and operating rooms, we were allowed the opportunity to see him. I told him I loved him and to pull through so we could play rooms together. The wound on his head was unavoidable. Filled with tenderness in what would be the last time we would see Matthias alive, we both kissed him ever so gently on the forehead, hoping he wouldn't feel any more pain. Afterwards, we broke the news to his siblings. As a parent knows their child's personality, each responded as expected. Mouse was silent, Bear was angry, Bug was goofy, Elephant, what pain for so young a child. Button at 1.5 months just needed his mummy. Mummy just wanted her son. And I was a useless heap upon the floor. Dawn broke. It was a Sunday morning. Our lives would never be the same again. Were you paying attention to the incredible work occurring in the painter's studio? Maybe one more brush stroke would clarify everything. It is a master stroke. It binds the painting together, carries the answers, and embeds the meaning. The ambulance was long gone from our sight. Few cars were on the road to be expected so early in the morning. It was an extremely windy, bitterly cold, and cloudless night. Up ahead on the horizon, from the hand of the master painter, a solitary shooting star. The most beautiful shooting star that ever there was. Immediately this thought came to me. I am God, and I am still in my heaven. Although I still held out hope, I knew deep down Matthias would not survive. As a shooting star shines but for a few seconds, Tiggy's life would be gone all too quick. At the same time, God in his tender mercy, as only he can, imprinted upon my heart the knowledge that there is one who knows the stars by name, and he is in control even when your whole world seems to be spinning out of it. And that is the beauty of this painting. The base colors are still visible, but it is increasing in attractiveness. Similar to when you view a work of art at the museum, you contemplate it, step away, come back, and ponder it anew. Each viewing reveals new insight. That evening, as to be expected, plays over and over in my head. But I look back on that night with new eyes, new wisdom, and a new appreciation. Firstly, Matthias' middle name was Riker. Matthias Riker means gift of God's strength. Tiggy was so damaged from the accident, it's a miracle he made it out of the basement. Yet he hung on for over 5 hours, long enough for these events to have played out to God's glory. From sweet farewells before work to loving goodbyes before death, God is our strength. Secondly, when I felt so abandoned and alone, the Lord was ever present, reminding me of that beloved poem, Footprints in the Sand. Thirdly, while we were struggling with Matthias' death, he was entering into life everlasting. Fourthly, never ceasing in his studio, God is the master painter. He has painted the grandest work of art in human history, that being the portrait of his Son, Jesus the Christ. The Scriptures declare, we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses. Referring to our high priest, Albert Barnes has commented, our high priest Jesus is not cold and unfeeling. That is, we have one who is abundantly qualified to sympathize with us in our afflictions, and to whom therefore we may look for aid and support in trials. Meaning, in our lives where many of our experiences are bitter, difficult, and trying, we can turn to the God who knows. When we turn to Jesus, we can be comforted, because by his wounds we are healed. Think of Jesus. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and familiar with suffering, like one from whom men hide the faces.